My name is Luna Blackwood, and I never believed in fate until the night I caught his scent on the wind. It was intoxicating, dangerous, and completely forbidden. Little did I know that this moment would change everything, not just for me, but for our entire supernatural world. I was 23 years old, a member of the Silver Moon Pack, one of the most respected werewolf communities in the Pacific Northwest. Our territory stretched across thousands of acres of pristine forest, where ancient pines whispered secrets and moonlight danced through emerald canopies. I had grown up here, trained here, and expected to live out my days serving my pack with honor and loyalty. But destiny, it seems, had other plans. The night everything changed started like any other. I was on patrol duty, running the eastern border of our territory in my wolf form. My midnight black fur blended seamlessly with the shadows as I moved silently through the underbrush, my enhanced senses alert for any sign of rogues or territorial violations. The Silver Moon Pack had been on edge lately. There had been reports of strange activities in the neighboring territories, missing pack members, unusual scents, and whispers of an ancient prophecy that spoke of a great upheaval in the werewolf world. Our alpha, Marcus Silverton, had increased patrols and tightened security, but the unease in our pack was palpable. As I rounded a familiar bend near Moonfall Creek, a scent hit me like a physical blow. It was masculine, powerful, and utterly intoxicating. Pine forests after rain, leather, and something wild and untamed that made my wolf whimper with recognition. The scent was so overwhelming that I stumbled, my paws skidding on the damp earth as every instinct in my body screamed one word: mate. But that was impossible. I had been searching for my mate for years, attending interpack gatherings and ceremonies, hoping to find that one person whose scent would call to my soul. The moon goddess hadn't blessed me with that connection, and at 23, I was beginning to think I might be one of the rare wolves destined to remain mateless. Yet here I was, my entire being vibrating with recognition and desire for someone I couldn't even see. I shifted back to my human form, my transformation swift and practiced. Standing naked in the moonlight, I pulled on the clothes I kept tied around my ankle, a simple black tank top and jeans. My hands were shaking as I dressed, my heart pounding so hard I was sure it could be heard for miles. Following the scent, I moved deeper into the forest, crossing into territory that bordered the neutral zone between packlands. This was dangerous. Venturing into unmarked territory alone was against pack law, especially for an unmated female. But the pull was too strong to resist. My wolf was practically clawing at my consciousness, demanding I find the source of that incredible scent. The trail led me to a clearing I had never seen before, despite years of patrolling these woods. Ancient standing stones formed a perfect circle, their surfaces covered in symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the moonlight. The air here felt different, charged with power and possibility. And there, standing in the center of the circle with his back to me, was the most magnificent man I had ever seen. He was tall, easily 6'4", with broad shoulders and a powerful build that spoke of both strength and grace. His hair was dark as midnight, falling in waves to his shoulders, and when he turned at my approach, I gasped. His eyes were the color of molten gold, burning with an intensity that made my knees weak. His face was all sharp angles and masculine beauty, high cheekbones, a strong jaw, and lips that were both sensual and commanding. But it was the power radiating from him that truly took my breath away. This wasn't just any werewolf. This was an alpha, and a powerful one at that. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice a low rumble that sent shivers down my spine. Despite his words, he made no move to leave or to send me away. "Neither should you," I replied, surprised by my own boldness. "This is neutral territory." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, and I felt my heart skip a beat. Neutral territory with very old magic. Do you feel it? I did feel it. The stones seemed to pulse with ancient energy, and the air itself felt alive with possibility. But more than that, I felt the undeniable pull between us. The recognition that sang in my blood and made my wolf pace restlessly beneath my skin. "What's your name?" I asked, taking a step closer, despite every rational thought telling me to run. "Kieran," he said simply. "Kieran Nightshade." The name hit me like a physical blow. Nightshade. I knew that name, had heard it whispered in hushed, fearful tones around pack fires. The Nightshade Pack was our sworn enemy, a group of werewolves who had been exiled from the greater supernatural community decades ago for practicing dark magic and breaking the most sacred laws of our kind. I started, but couldn't finish the sentence. "The enemy," he completed for me, his golden eyes never leaving mine. "The monster your pack tells stories about to frighten young wolves into obedience." I should have run. Every instinct, every lesson I had ever learned about pack loyalty and safety should have sent me fleeing back to Silver Moon territory. Instead, I found myself taking another step closer. "Are you?" I asked quietly. "A monster?" Kieran studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "That depends on who you ask. Your pack would certainly say so." I'm asking you to trust your own judgment, Luna Blackwood." The fact that he knew my name should have alarmed me, but instead it sent a thrill through my system. "How do you know who I am?" "The same way you know what I am, despite never having seen me before. The same way you followed my scent through dangerous territory, despite every law and instinct telling you not to." He took a step closer, and I could feel the heat radiating from his body. "We're mates, Luna. The moon goddess has bound us together, regardless of the hatred between our packs." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication and impossibility. Mates. The one person in all the world meant to complete me, to be my other half, my perfect match. And he was from the pack that had been our mortal enemy for longer than I had been alive. "This is impossible," I whispered. But even as I said it, I knew it was true. The bond between us was undeniable, a golden thread that seemed to connect our very souls. "Many impossible things have happened in these woods," Kieran said, gesturing to the ancient stones around us. "This place is older than the feuds between our packs, older than the laws that would keep us apart. Here we're just two wolves called together by forces greater than ourselves." I wanted to argue, to deny what I was feeling, but when Kieran reached out and gently touched my cheek, all rational thought fled. The moment his skin made contact with mine, it was like lightning struck. Power flowed between us, and I could feel his wolf calling to mine in a song as old as time itself. "Luna," he said my name like a prayer, and I was lost. "This is forbidden," I managed to say, even as I leaned into his touch. "I know. Our packs will never accept it. I know. It could destroy everything. I know." His thumb traced across my cheekbone, and I shivered. "But I also know that I've been searching for you my entire life, and now that I've found you, I can't just walk away." Neither could I. Despite everything I had been taught, despite the danger and the impossibility of it all, I couldn't deny the connection between us. This was my mate, the other half of my soul, and no amount of pack politics or ancient feuds could change that fundamental truth. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "We take this one moment at a time," Kieran replied. "We meet here in this neutral place, and we figure out how to navigate this together. And if we're caught," his expression darkened, "then we face the consequences together. But Luna, I need you to understand something. The hatred between our packs runs deeper than you know. There are secrets, old wounds that have never healed. If they discover our bond—" "What aren't you telling me?" I asked, sensing there was more to his words. Kieran was quiet for a long moment, his golden eyes troubled. "There are things about my pack, about what we've done and why we were exiled that you don't know, things that could change how you feel about me. Tell me." "Not tonight. Tonight, let's just be Luna and Kieran, two wolves who found each other under the moon. The rest can wait." I wanted to press him for answers, but something in his expression stopped me. Whatever secrets he was keeping, they were clearly painful ones. And despite everything, I trusted him. The mate bond might have been new and unexpected, but it was also absolute. My soul recognized his, and that recognition came with an inherent trust that transcended logic. "When will I see you again?" I asked. "Tomorrow night, here, at midnight." "Kieran, yes? Whatever secrets you're keeping, whatever your pack has done, it doesn't change what we are to each other." His smile was both grateful and heartbreaking. "You say that now, but you don't know the whole truth. Then tell me the truth, all of it." "I will," he promised, "but not all at once. Some truths are too heavy to bear all at once." As if summoned by his words, a howl echoed through the forest, the call of my pack, searching for their missing member. I had been gone too long, and they would be worried. "I have to go," I said reluctantly. "I know." Kieran stepped back, but not before pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. The simple contact sent warmth flooding through my entire body, and I had to fight the urge to throw myself into his arms and never let go. "Until tomorrow," he said. "Until tomorrow," I agreed. I shifted back into my wolf form and ran toward the sound of my pack's calls, my mind reeling with everything that had just happened. I had found my mate, but he was from the enemy pack. We were bound together by forces beyond our control, but that bond could destroy both our worlds. As I rejoined my patrol group, spinning a story about chasing a rogue scent that led to nothing, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life had just taken a turn toward something both wonderful and terrible. The secret I now carried felt like a weight in my chest, I was mated to Kieran Nightshade, a wolf from the pack that had been our sworn enemy for decades, and according to him, there were even darker secrets yet to be revealed. But as I ran through the moonlit forest toward home, one thing was absolutely certain. Whatever the cost, whatever the consequences, I would see him again tomorrow night. The mate bond was not something that could be ignored or denied, and I was already counting the hours until I could be in his arms again. The forbidden love that had sparked between us in that ancient stone circle would either save our packs or destroy them all, and I was terrified to discover which it would be. The next day passed in a haze of distraction and anticipation. I went through the motions of my daily routine, training with the younger pack members, helping with border patrols, attending the evening pack meeting, but my mind was entirely focused on the approaching midnight hour and my planned rendezvous with Kieran. During the pack meeting, Alpha Marcus discussed the increasing tensions with neighboring territories and the strange reports that had been filtering in from scouts. Several pack members had gone missing from various territories across the region, and there were whispers of dark magic being practiced in the deep woods. "We must remain vigilant," Alpha Marcus said, his steel-gray eyes scanning the assembled pack. "The Nightshade Pack has been unusually quiet lately, which makes me more nervous than if they were actively causing trouble. When predators go silent, it usually means they're planning something significant." I fought to keep my expression neutral at the mention of Kieran's pack, but my heart was racing. What if Alpha Marcus was right? What if Kieran's people were planning something terrible? And what did that mean for our newly discovered bond? After the meeting, my best friend and fellow pack member, Sarah, pulled me aside. Sarah was a year older than me, with auburn hair and keen green eyes that missed nothing. We had grown up together, trained together, and she knew me better than anyone. "You've been distracted all day," she said as we walked toward our shared cabin. "What's going on with you?" "Nothing," I lied, hating myself for the deception. "Just tired from last night's patrol." Sarah stopped walking and turned to face me fully. "Luna, we've been friends since we were children. I know when you're lying. You've been checking the time every 5 minutes. You barely touched your food at dinner, and you have this glow about you that I've never seen before." My heart sank. If Sarah could see the change in me so clearly, how long would it be before others noticed? The mate bond was powerful, and it often left physical signs, a certain radiance, an energy that was hard to hide. "I'm fine, really," I insisted, but Sarah wasn't buying it. "Luna, please, whatever it is, you can tell me. We're pack sisters." The words pack sisters hit me like a physical blow. Sarah and I were indeed like sisters, bound by loyalty and shared experiences. But the secret I was keeping would put that loyalty to the ultimate test. How could I tell her that I had found my mate in the enemy pack? How could I explain that everything we had been taught about the Nightshades might be wrong? "I just need some time to figure things out," I said finally. "Can you trust me on this?" Sarah studied my face for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. "Always. But Luna, if you're in trouble, if you need help with anything, you know I'm here for you, right?" "I know," I said, pulling her into a hug. "Thank you." As we parted ways for the night, I felt the weight of my deception settling heavily on my shoulders. I was lying to my best friend, sneaking around behind my pack's back, and about to meet secretly with someone they considered an enemy, but the pull toward Kieran was too strong to resist. At 11:45 p.m., I slipped out of my cabin and shifted into my wolf form. The forest was alive with night sounds, owls calling, small creatures rustling through the underbrush, and the distant howl of a coyote. I moved swiftly and silently through the trees, my heart pounding with anticipation and nervousness. When I reached the stone circle, Kieran was already there, standing in the same spot where I had first seen him. Tonight, he wore dark jeans and a black sweater that emphasized his powerful build. His golden eyes found mine immediately, and the smile that spread across his face made my knees weak. "You came," he said, as if he had been uncertain I would. "Did you think I wouldn't?" I asked, shifting back to human form and pulling on my clothes. "I hoped you would, but I also know how strong pack loyalty runs in the Silver Moon Wolves. I thought you might have second thoughts." I walked toward him, drawn by the invisible thread that connected us. "I did have second thoughts, about 100 of them, but I'm here. I'm glad," he said simply, and the sincerity in his voice made my heart flutter. We stood facing each other in the moonlight, the ancient stones surrounding us like silent guardians. The air between us crackled with tension and unspoken desire, but there was also something else, a weight of secrets that needed to be addressed. "You promised to tell me the truth," I said, "about your pack, about why you were exiled." Kieran's expression grew serious, and he gestured for me to sit on one of the fallen logs that formed a natural bench near the edge of the circle. He sat beside me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his body, but not quite touching. "The truth is complicated," he began, And it starts with a story that happened long before either of us was born. I'm listening. Kieran was quiet for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with old pain. 60 years ago, there was a great war between the supernatural communities. Not just werewolves, but vampires, witches, fae, all the hidden peoples of the world. It was a war that threatened to expose us all to the human world, and it nearly destroyed everything our ancestors had built. I had heard whispers of this war, but the details had always been kept from the younger pack members. It was considered ancient history, something that had been resolved long before our time. The Nightshade Pack was one of the most powerful werewolf communities in North America, Kieran continued. My great-grandfather, Aldrich Nightshade, was an alpha of incredible strength and wisdom. When the war began, he tried to remain neutral, to keep his pack out of the conflict. But that didn't work? No, the war came to us anyway. A coven of dark witches, led by a sorceress named Morgana Blackthorne, attacked our territory. They were trying to steal something from us, an ancient artifact that had been in our pack's possession for centuries. Kieran paused, his hands clenching into fists. I could feel his anger and pain through our bond, and I instinctively reached out to cover his hand with mine. The contact seemed to calm him, and he continued. The artifact was called the Moonstone of Binding. It was said to have the power to control the mate bonds between werewolves, to force connections or sever them at will. Morgana wanted it to create an army of werewolves bound to her will. My blood ran cold. The idea of someone being able to manipulate the sacred mate bond was horrifying beyond words. My great-grandfather refused to give up the stone, so Morgana and her coven attacked. The battle lasted for 3 days and nights. In the end, my great-grandfather made a desperate choice. Rather than let the stone fall into Morgana's hands, he used its power to create a protective barrier around our territory. That sounds like a good thing, I said, confused about why this would lead to exile. Kieran's expression darkened. The magic required a sacrifice. To power the barrier, the stone needed to feed on life force. My great-grandfather offered his own life, but it wasn't enough. The stone demanded more. I felt a chill run down my spine. What happened? The barrier worked, but it drew life force from everyone within our territory. Our own pack members. Dozens of wolves died to power the magic that saved the rest. When the other packs learned what had happened, they declared us cursed, tainted by dark magic. We were exiled from the supernatural community and branded as practitioners of forbidden arts. The weight of this revelation settled over me like a heavy blanket. The Nightshade Pack hadn't been exiled for being evil. They had been punished for making an impossible choice in desperate circumstances. But that was 60 years ago, I said. Surely the other packs understand that it wasn't your choice? Fear has a long memory, Kieran replied bitterly. And the barrier my great-grandfather created? It's still there. Our territory is still protected by magic that was born from sacrifice. The other packs see us as a reminder of what happens when you dabble in dark magic, even for good reasons. Is that why you're telling me this? Because you think I'll reject you now that I know? Kieran turned to face me fully, his golden eyes intense. I'm telling you because you deserve to know what you're getting into. If we pursue this bond, if we try to be together, you'll be associated with a pack that's considered cursed. Your own pack will see you as tainted. I stood up abruptly, pacing to the center of the stone circle. The ancient symbols on the stones seemed to pulse with faint light, as if responding to my emotional turmoil. So what are you saying? That we should just ignore the mate bond? Pretend we never found each other? I'm saying you should make an informed choice, Kieran said, standing as well. I won't lie to you or hide the truth about what being with me would mean. I turned to face him, my heart breaking at the pain I could see in his expression. He was giving me an out, expecting me to choose my pack's approval over our bond. But he didn't understand. He couldn't understand what he meant to me. Kieran, do you know what it's like to spend your entire life feeling like something is missing? Like there's a piece of your soul that's just gone? He nodded slowly. Yes, I know exactly what that feels like. Then you know that finding this bond between us, is like finally being able to breathe properly for the first time in my life. I don't care what your pack did 60 years ago. I don't care if mine considers you cursed. You're my mate. And that's all that matters to me. The relief that flooded Kieran's face was so profound that it took my breath away. In 2 quick strides, he crossed the space between us and pulled me into his arms. The moment our bodies made contact, it was like coming home. Luna, he whispered against my hair. Are you sure? Once we accept this bond fully, there's no going back. I'm sure, I said, tilting my face up to look at him. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more secrets. If we're going to do this, If we're going to try to make this work despite everything against us, then we have to be completely honest with each other. Kieran's expression flickered for just a moment so quickly that I almost missed it. But there was something there, a shadow of hesitation that made my stomach clench. Kieran, there's something else, isn't there? He sighed, his arms tightening around me. There is something else, but it's not about the past. It's about the present, about what's happening now. Tell me, the missing pack members that your alpha mentioned, we know what's happening to them. My blood turned to ice. What do you mean? Morgana Blackthorne is back, Luna. The witch who tried to steal the Moonstone 60 years ago, she's returned and she's building an army. The missing werewolves aren't missing. They're being turned into her servants, bound to her will through dark magic. The implications of this hit me like a physical blow. But the Moonstone, I thought your great-grandfather used it to create the barrier. He did, but the stone wasn't destroyed in the process. It's still in our territory, still powering the barrier that protects us. And Morgana still wants it. Why are you telling me this? Why not warn the other packs directly? Kieran's laugh was bitter. Who would believe us? We're the cursed pack, remember? If we tried to warn the others about Morgana's return, they'd assume we were working with her. I pulled back to look at him fully, my mind racing. But you're not, right? Your pack isn't working with her? Of course not. She's the reason we were exiled in the first place. But Luna, there's something else you need to know. Something about why I was in this clearing last night. Why I was able to find you. What? I wasn't just wandering through neutral territory. I was tracking Morgana's magical signature. She's been using these ancient stone circles to perform her binding rituals. This place, where we met, where we discovered our bond, it's one of her ritual sites. The ground seemed to shift beneath my feet. Are you saying that our meeting wasn't fate? That it was somehow influenced by her magic? I don't know, Kieran admitted. The mate bond is supposed to be beyond the reach of any magic, but Morgana is more powerful now than she was 60 years ago. It's possible that she's found a way to manipulate even that. I staggered backward, my hand pressed to my chest as if I could physically hold my heart together. Everything I had believed about our connection, about the destiny that had brought us together, was suddenly in question. So this might not be real? I whispered. What I'm feeling for you might just be the result of dark magic? Kieran's face crumpled with pain. Luna, no. What we have is real. I can feel it in every fiber of my being. The mate bond isn't something that can be faked or manufactured. But you just said, I said it was possible that Morgana's magic influenced our meeting, not our bond. Maybe she somehow guided us to this place at the same time, but what happened between us, what we feel for each other, that's genuine. I wanted to believe him, but doubt was creeping in like poison. How could I trust my own feelings when there was dark magic involved? How could I be sure that anything I was experiencing was real? I need time to think, I said, backing toward the edge of the clearing. Luna, please don't go. Not like this. I have to. This is all too much, too complicated. I need to figure out what's real and what isn't. What we have is real, Kieran said desperately. I swear to you on my life, on my pack's honor. What we feel for each other is genuine. I wanted to believe him, but the seed of doubt had been planted. As I shifted into my wolf form and ran back toward Silver Moon territory, my mind was churning with questions and fears. Was my love for Kieran real, or was I just a pawn in some dark witch's game? And if Morgana Blackthorne was truly back and building an army, what did that mean for all the supernatural communities? One thing was certain, the forbidden love that had seemed like the biggest problem in my life was suddenly the least of my worries. A much darker threat was rising, and I was caught in the middle of it all. I barely slept that night, my mind churning with everything Kieran had revealed. By dawn, I had made a decision that would either save us all or damn me completely. I was going to investigate Morgana Blackthorne's return myself. The pack library was housed in the basement of the main lodge, a repository of ancient texts and historical records that most wolves ignored in favor of more physical pursuits. But I had always been drawn to knowledge, and if I was going to understand what we were truly facing, I needed to learn everything I could about our enemy. I spent the morning poring over dusty volumes and faded manuscripts, searching for any mention of Morgana Blackthorne or the war that had torn apart the supernatural community 60 years ago. What I found chilled me to the bone. Morgana wasn't just any dark witch. She was one of the most powerful sorceresses in recorded history. Born in the 1800s, she had spent decades studying forbidden magic and accumulating power through increasingly dark means. The war 60 years ago hadn't been her first attempt at conquest. It had been her most ambitious. According to the records, Morgana had the ability to manipulate life force itself, to bind creatures to her will through blood magic and soul-binding rituals. She could create armies of supernatural beings who had no choice but to obey her every command. The missing werewolves that Alpha Marcus had mentioned weren't just disappearing. They were being turned into magical slaves. But what truly terrified me was a passage I found in a journal written by one of the war's survivors. Morgana's greatest weapon is not her magic, but her ability to corrupt the bonds that hold our communities together. She turns mate against mate, pack against pack, using our own love and loyalty as weapons against us. Trust no one completely, for she can make even the purest heart serve her dark purposes. The words echoed in my mind as I remembered Kieran's revelation about our meeting place being one of Morgana's ritual sites. What if our bond wasn't genuine? What if I was already under her influence without knowing it? I was so absorbed in my research that I didn't notice Alpha Marcus approaching until he cleared his throat behind me. "Luna," he said, his voice carrying the authority that made every wolf in the pack instinctively straighten. "May I ask what has you so interested in ancient history?" I turned to face him, my heart racing. Alpha Marcus was a formidable man in his 50s, with silver-streaked hair and eyes like steel. He had led the Silver Moon Pack for over 20 years, and his ability to read people was legendary. "I was curious about the supernatural war," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "With all the strange reports lately, I thought it might be helpful to understand what happened before." Alpha Marcus studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "And what have you learned?" "That Morgana Blackthorne was more dangerous than I realized, and that she might be returning." The Alpha's eyes sharpened. "What makes you say that?" I hesitated, knowing that my next words would either gain his trust or damn me completely. "The missing pack members, the strange magical signatures our scouts have detected. It all matches the patterns from 60 years ago." "You've done thorough research," Alpha Marcus said, moving to sit across from me at the library table. "But Luna, there's something you should know. We've been monitoring the situation for weeks. We know Morgana is back." The admission hit me like a physical blow. "You know? Then why haven't you warned the other packs?" "Because we're not certain of her exact plans yet, and premature action could make things worse. We're gathering intelligence, building alliances with packs we can trust." "What about the Nightshade Pack?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "They fought her before. Surely their knowledge would be valuable." Alpha Marcus's expression darkened. "The Nightshades are not to be trusted, Luna. Their use of dark magic makes them unpredictable allies at best, and potential enemies at worst. But what if they're not the enemy? What if they were just trying to protect themselves?" "Luna," Alpha Marcus said, his voice carrying a warning, "you seem unusually interested in defending a pack that has been our enemy for decades. Is there something you need to tell me?" My mouth went dry. Alpha Marcus was too perceptive, too experienced. If I wasn't careful, he would figure out my secret, and then everything would be over. "I just think we need all the help we can get," I said finally. "If Morgana is as powerful as these records suggest, maybe old grudges are less important than survival." Alpha Marcus leaned back in his chair, still studying me intently. "You may be right about that. In fact, I've been considering reaching out to certain neutral parties who might be able to facilitate communication with the Nightshades." "Really?" "The situation is too serious for pride or old wounds to interfere with necessary action." "But Luna, I need you to promise me something." "Of course, Alpha. If you encounter anything unusual, anything that might be connected to Morgana's return, you come to me immediately. Don't try to handle it alone." The irony of his words wasn't lost on me. I was already neck-deep in something connected to Morgana's return, and I was definitely handling it alone. But I nodded anyway, hating myself for the deception. "I promise, Alpha." That evening, I made my way back to the stone circle, my mind heavy with everything I had learned. I arrived early, hoping to examine the site more carefully in the fading daylight. If this place was truly one of Morgana's ritual sites, there might be evidence I could find. The ancient stones looked different in the twilight, their carved symbols seeming to shift and writhe in the changing light. I walked slowly around the circle, running my fingers over the weathered surfaces, searching for any sign of recent magical activity. It was then that I noticed it. A faint residue of power clinging to the stones like the echo of a scream. The magic felt cold and wrong. Nothing like the warm, natural energy I was used to from pack magic or the mate bond. This was something darker, more predatory. "You feel it too." I spun around to find Kieran emerging from the tree line, his expression grim. Tonight, he looked more dangerous than ever, his golden eyes reflecting the last rays of sunlight like a predator's. "The dark magic," I said. "It's all over this place." "It's getting stronger," Kieran confirmed, moving to stand beside me. "Morgana has been using this site regularly. We think she's building up to something big. We, my pack, we've been monitoring her activities for weeks, trying to figure out her endgame." I turned to face him fully, all the doubts and fears from the previous night rushing back. "Kieran, I need you to be completely honest with me. Is our bond real, or is it something she created? Kieran's face crumpled with pain. Luna, I understand why you're questioning this, but I swear to you, what we have is genuine. The mate bond isn't something that can be manufactured, even by someone as powerful as Morgana. But you said she can manipulate bonds, turn mate against mate. She can corrupt existing bonds, twist them into something dark and possessive, but she can't create them from nothing. Kieran stepped closer, his hands reaching for mine. What we feel for each other, the connection between us. It's real, Luna. I stake my life on it. I wanted to believe him, but the doubt was like a poison in my veins. How can you be so certain? Because I've felt what her magic does to people. I've seen the wolves she's corrupted, the way her influence feels like ice in your veins and shadows in your mind. What I feel for you is the opposite of that. It's warmth and light and hope. Before I could respond, a new voice cut through the evening air like a blade. How touching. Young love blooming in the shadow of ancient power. We spun toward the voice and my blood turned to ice. Standing at the edge of the clearing was a woman who could only be Morgana Blackthorne. She was tall and elegant, with long black hair and pale skin that seemed to glow in the moonlight. Her beauty was undeniable, but there was something wrong with it. Too perfect, too cold, like a beautiful corpse. Morgana, Kieran growled, immediately shifting into a protective stance in front of me. Hello, young Nightshade, she said with a smile that never reached her eyes. And you must be Luna Blackwood. I've been so looking forward to meeting you. Stay away from her, Kieran snarled, his body beginning to shift as his wolf rose to the surface. Oh, I have no intention of harming her, Morgana said, her voice like silk over steel. She's far too valuable to me alive and cooperative. What do you want? I demanded, surprised by the steadiness of my own voice. Want? My dear child, I already have what I want. Or rather, what I want is already in motion. Morgana began walking slowly around the circle, her fingers trailing over the ancient stones. You see, I've been watching you two, studying your little romance. It's quite fascinating, really. You're the one who brought us together, I said, the pieces finally clicking into place. You manipulated our meeting. Manipulated is such an ugly word, Morgana said with a laugh. I prefer to think of it as facilitated. You see, the mate bond between you two was always destined to exist. I simply ensured that you would find each other at the right time and place. Why? Kieran demanded. Because, my dear boy, you two are the key to everything I've been working toward. The Moonstone of Binding that your pack guards so jealously. It can only be retrieved by someone with a pure heart and genuine love, someone who would sacrifice everything for their mate. The implications of her words hit me like a physical blow. You want me to steal the Moonstone? I want you to choose, Morgana corrected. You see, I have something that belongs to you, Luna. Or rather, someone. With a gesture, Morgana caused the air to shimmer, and suddenly Sarah was standing beside her, her eyes blank and unseeing. My best friend, my pack sister, was clearly under some kind of magical compulsion. Sarah! I started forward, but Kieran caught my arm. It's a trap, he warned. Of course it's a trap, Morgana said cheerfully, but it's also a choice. You can save your friend Luna, but it will cost you. Bring me the Moonstone of Binding, and I'll release her unharmed. Refuse, and she becomes the first of many Silver Moon wolves to join my army. You can't do this, I said, my voice breaking. She's innocent. Innocence is a luxury in war, my dear. And make no mistake, we are at war. The old order is crumbling, and I intend to build something better in its place. Better? Kieran spat. You mean enslaved to your will. I mean united under proper leadership. No more petty pack rivalries. No more territorial disputes. No more senseless feuds that have lasted for generations. One supernatural community, working together toward common goals. Under your control, I said. Under my guidance, Morgana corrected. I have the power and the vision to lead our people into a new age. All I need is the Moonstone to make it possible. I looked at Sarah, my heart breaking at the sight of her vacant expression. She had been my closest friend since childhood, the sister I had never had. The thought of her being turned into one of Morgana's magical slaves was unbearable. How do I know you'll keep your word? I asked. You don't, Morgana said simply. But you know what will happen if you refuse. And Luna, just to make things interesting, you have until tomorrow night to decide. If you don't bring me the Moonstone by midnight, your friend's transformation will be permanent. Luna, no, Kieran said urgently. You can't trust her. Even if you give her what she wants, she'll never let Sarah go. Perhaps, Morgana said. But it's Luna's choice to make, isn't it? Love and loyalty are such powerful motivators. I wonder which will prove stronger, her love for you or her loyalty to her friend. With another gesture, Morgana and Sarah vanished, leaving Kieran and me alone in the stone circle. I collapsed to my knees, the weight of the impossible choice crushing down on me. She's right, I whispered. I have to choose. Save Sarah and doom the supernatural world, or let my best friend become a slave to save everyone else. Kieran knelt beside me, his arms wrapping around my shaking form. There has to be another way. We'll find it, Luna. I promise. But even as he spoke the words, I could hear the doubt in his voice. Morgana had planned this perfectly, using my own love and loyalty against me. Whatever choice I made, someone I cared about would suffer. The forbidden love that had brought Kieran and me together was about to tear apart everything we held dear, and I was running out of time to find a solution that could save us all. The next day passed in a blur of desperate planning and impossible choices. Kieran and I met at dawn in a secluded grove on the border between our territories, both of us having barely slept after Morgana's ultimatum. There has to be another way, I said for the 100th time, pacing back and forth across the small clearing. Some way to save Sarah without giving Morgana the Moonstone. Kieran sat on a fallen log, his head in his hands. I've been thinking about it all night, and I keep coming back to the same conclusion. The Moonstone is too well protected. Even if we could somehow get it away from my pack's territory, Morgana would never honor her bargain. But we have to try something. I can't just abandon Sarah. And I can't let you sacrifice yourself and potentially doom our entire world for one person, no matter how much you love her. The words hung between us like a blade. I stopped pacing and turned to face him, seeing the anguish in his golden eyes. So what are you saying? That Sarah's life doesn't matter? I'm saying that sometimes there are no good choices, only necessary ones. Kieran stood and moved toward me, his expression desperate. Luna, if Morgana gets the Moonstone, she'll be able to control every mated pair in the supernatural world. She'll turn our greatest strength, our bonds to each other, into her weapon. I know that, I said, my voice breaking. Don't you think I know that? But Sarah is my best friend, my pack sister. She's been there for me through everything. How can I just let her become a slave? Because the alternative is letting everyone become slaves. I wanted to argue, to find some flaw in his logic, but I couldn't. Kieran was right, and we both knew it. The rational choice was to sacrifice Sarah to save the greater supernatural community. But knowing something intellectually and being able to live with it emotionally were two very different things. There has to be another way, I repeated, but even I could hear the desperation in my voice. Maybe there is, said a new voice from the edge of the clearing. We spun around to see Alpha Marcus emerging from the trees, accompanied by two other figures I didn't recognize. A tall woman with silver hair and violet eyes, and a man who radiated power in a way that made my wolf whimper with recognition. Another Alpha. Alpha Marcus, I stammered, my heart racing. What are you doing here? Following my best tracker when she starts exhibiting suspicious behavior, he replied, his steel gray eyes moving between Kieran and me. Luna, I think it's time you told me the truth about what's been going on. I looked at Kieran, seeing my own panic reflected in his expression. We had been discovered, and there was no way to explain our presence here together without revealing everything. Alpha, I began, but he held up a hand to stop me. Before you say anything, let me introduce my companions. This is Lydia Moonwhisper, High Priestess of the Northern Coven, and Alpha Darius Stormclaw of the Mountain Ridge Pack. The woman with violet eyes stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the space between Kieran and me. Fascinating, she murmured. The mate bond between you two is incredibly strong, and completely genuine. You can see it? I asked, surprised. I'm a witch, dear. Magical bonds are quite visible to those who know how to look. Lydia's expression grew serious. But there's something else here, something darker. You've both been touched by shadow magic recently. Morgana, Kieran said grimly. She has Luna's friend, and she's demanding the Moonstone in exchange for her release. Alpha Darius stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. We know about Morgana's return. We've been tracking her movements for weeks, trying to determine her endgame. You know? I looked between the three of them, confusion and hope warring in my chest. Then you know we have to stop her. We do, Alpha Marcus confirmed. But Luna, why didn't you come to me when this started? Why keep it secret? I felt heat rise in my cheeks. Because Kieran is from the Nightshade Pack. I knew you'd never approve of our bond. The Nightshade Pack, Alpha Darius said thoughtfully, looking at Kieran with new interest. You're Aldrich's great-grandson, aren't you? Yes, Kieran replied warily. Your great-grandfather was a good man who made an impossible choice in desperate circumstances. The supernatural community owes him a debt, not exile. The words seemed to hit Kieran like a physical blow. You don't see us as cursed. We see you as survivors, Lydia said gently. And right now, we need all the survivors we can get. Alpha Marcus moved to stand in front of me, his expression stern but not unkind. Luna, I'm disappointed that you didn't trust me with this, but I understand why you felt you couldn't. The feud between our packs has gone on too long, and it's blinded us to what's really important. What's really important? I asked. Stopping Morgana before she can complete her plan, Alpha Darius said. And we think we know what that plan is. Lydia pulled out an ancient-looking scroll from her bag and spread it on the ground. We've been researching Morgana's activities, both past and present. She's not just trying to build an army, she's trying to perform a ritual that will give her control over all supernatural bonds. All of them? Kieran asked, his voice tight with horror. Mate bonds, pack bonds, coven bonds, even the connections between vampires and their sires. If she succeeds, every supernatural being in North America will be under her control. I felt sick. And the Moonstone is the key to this ritual? It's the focus, Lydia confirmed. The Moonstone of Binding was created centuries ago by a coalition of witches and werewolves to protect the mate bond from corruption. But in the wrong hands, it can be used to corrupt those same bonds. So we can't let her have it, I said. But that means Sarah. Not necessarily, Alpha Marcus said. We have a plan, but it's dangerous. And it requires all of us working together. What kind of plan? Kieran asked. Alpha Darius smiled grimly. We're going to give Morgana exactly what she wants and use it to destroy her. Over the next hour, they outlined their strategy. It was audacious, risky, and required perfect timing. But it might be our only chance to save both Sarah and the supernatural world. The plan hinged on the fact that Morgana needed to perform her ritual at a place of power, specifically the stone circle where Kieran and I had first met. She had been using the site to build up magical energy for weeks, and the ritual had to be completed there for it to work. We'll give her a fake moonstone, Lydia explained. I can create a replica that will fool her long enough for us to get close. But won't she be able to tell it's fake? I asked. Not immediately. The replica will contain enough real power to pass initial inspection, but it will fail when she tries to use it for the actual ritual. And that's when we strike, Alpha Darius added. While she's distracted by the failure, we'll have teams positioned around the circle to attack from all sides. What about Sarah? I asked. If we attack Morgana, won't she hurt her? That's where you come in, Alpha Marcus said, looking at me seriously. You'll be the one delivering the fake moonstone. While Morgana is focused on the ritual, you'll need to get close enough to Sarah to break the compulsion spell. Can I do that? The mate bond gives you access to powerful magic, Lydia explained. Combined with your natural protective instincts toward your friend, you should be able to shatter Morgana's hold on her. It was a lot of shoulds and mights for my comfort, but it was better than the impossible choice I had been facing. There's one more thing, Kieran said quietly. If this goes wrong, if Morgana realizes what we're doing before we can stop her, then we all die, Alpha Darius finished bluntly. But if we do nothing, we all become her slaves anyway. At least this way, we go down fighting. As the sun began to set, we finalized our preparations. Lydia worked her magic to create the fake moonstone, while the two alphas coordinated with their packs to position fighters around the ritual site. Kieran and I were left alone for a few precious minutes before the final confrontation. Luna, he said, taking my hands in his. Whatever happens tonight, I want you to know that finding you, loving you, has been the greatest gift of my life. Don't talk like that, I said, tears threatening. We're going to get through this. We're going to save Sarah and stop Morgana, and then we're going to figure out how to make this work between our packs. I hope so, Kieran said, pulling me into his arms. But if something goes wrong, if I don't make it out of this, you will. But if I don't, I need you to know that our love was real. Whatever doubts Morgana planted in your mind, whatever fears you have about our bond being manipulated, it's real, Luna. What we have is the most genuine thing I've ever experienced. I stood on my toes and kissed him, pouring all my love and fear and hope into the contact. When we broke apart, both of us were breathing hard. I love you, I whispered. I love you too, he replied. Now let's go save the world. As we made our way toward the stone circle for what might be our final confrontation with Morgana, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. One way or another, this night would determine the fate of the supernatural world. The forbidden love that had brought Kieran and me together was about to be tested in the crucible of battle. And I prayed to the moon goddess that it would be strong enough to see us through. The stone circle looked different in the moonlight, charged with dark energy that made the air itself feel heavy and oppressive. Morgana stood in the center, her black hair flowing around her like liquid shadow, while Sarah remained motionless beside her, still trapped in the witch's compulsion. I approached slowly, the fake moonstone hidden in a leather pouch at my side. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure Morgana could hear it, but I forced myself to maintain a calm exterior. "Luna," Morgana said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Right on time. Luna," Morgana said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Right on time. I was beginning to wonder if you valued your friend's life as much as you claimed. "I'm here," I said, stopping at the edge of the stone circle. "Let Sarah go and I'll give you what you want." "Show me the moonstone first," Morgana commanded, her violet eyes gleaming with anticipation. I pulled the fake stone from the pouch, and even I had to admit that Lydia's work was impressive. The replica pulsed with silvery light, looking exactly like the descriptions I had read of the real artifact. Morgana's eyes widened with hunger as she saw it. "Bring it to me," she ordered. "Release Sarah first." Morgana laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "I don't think you're in a position to make demands, my dear. But very well. I'll show you that I can be reasonable." She gestured toward Sarah, and my friend's eyes suddenly cleared. Sarah looked around in confusion, taking in the stone circle, Morgana's presence, and my own tense stance. "Luna," she said, her voice weak and confused. "What's happening? Where are we?" "It's okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Everything's going to be okay." But even as I spoke the words, I could see Morgana's magic still wrapped around Sarah like invisible chains. She might be conscious, but she wasn't free. "The stone, Luna," Morgana said impatiently. "Now." I stepped into the circle, every instinct screaming at me to run. The dark energy here was overwhelming, pressing against my consciousness like a physical weight. But I forced myself to keep walking until I was close enough to place the fake moonstone in Morgana's outstretched hand. The moment her fingers closed around it, Morgana's expression changed to one of pure ecstasy. "Yes," she breathed. "After all these years, finally." She raised the stone above her head, and it began to glow brighter, responding to her magical touch. Around us, the ancient symbols carved into the standing stones started to pulse with answering light. "Now," Morgana said, her voice carrying across the clearing, "let the new age begin." She began to chant in a language I didn't recognize, her words seeming to twist reality around us. The air shimmered, and I could feel something vast and terrible stirring in response to her call. But then, just as Lydia had predicted, something went wrong. The fake moonstone's light flickered and began to fade. Morgana's chanting faltered as she realized what was happening. "What is this?" she snarled, staring at the dying stone in her hand. This is a fake. "Now!" I shouted, and chaos erupted around the stone circle. Kieran burst from the tree line in his wolf form, a massive black beast with golden eyes blazing with fury. Behind him came Alpha Marcus and his fighters, while Alpha Darius led his own pack in from the opposite side. Lydia appeared at the edge of the circle, her hands already weaving spells to counter Morgana's magic. But Morgana was far from helpless. With a shriek of rage, she hurled the fake moonstone aside and raised her hands, dark energy crackling between her fingers. "You think you can defeat me?" she screamed. "I am eternal. I am power incarnate." She gestured toward the attacking wolves, and several of them froze mid-leap, caught in webs of shadow magic. But the others kept coming, and Morgana was forced to divide her attention between multiple threats. I used the distraction to dive towards Sarah, grabbing her hand and trying to pull her away from the center of the circle. But Morgana's compulsion was still strong, and Sarah resisted, her eyes going blank again. "Sarah, fight it," I pleaded. "You're stronger than her magic. She belongs to me now," Morgana said, even as she battled Lydia's counterspells. "As will you all once I'm finished with this annoyance." The witch raised one hand toward the sky, and I felt a chill of absolute terror as I realized what she was doing. She was calling on the dark energy she had been building up in this place for weeks, preparing to unleash it all at once. "Everyone get back!" Lydia shouted. "She's going to—" The explosion of dark magic cut off her words, sending everyone flying backward. I hit the ground hard, my ears ringing and my vision blurred. Around me, I could hear the sounds of battle, snarls, howls, and the crackle of magical energy. When my vision cleared, I saw that Morgana had grown in power, her form now wreathed in shadows that seemed to move independently. She was no longer entirely human, transformed by the dark magic into something monstrous. "You cannot stop what has already begun," she said, her voice echoing with unnatural harmonics. "I have spent decades preparing for this moment. Even without the true moonstone, I have enough power to begin the binding." She gestured toward the wolves who had been caught in her shadow webs, and I watched in horror as their eyes went blank, their wills subsumed by her magic. One by one, they turned toward their former packmates, now serving Morgana's will. "No!" Kieran howled, his wolf form rippling as he prepared to charge the witch directly. "Kieran, don't!" I screamed. "She'll turn you too." But he was already moving, his powerful form racing across the clearing toward Morgana. She smiled and raised her hand, dark energy gathering around her fingers. In that moment, I felt something snap inside me. The mate bond, the connection that tied Kieran's soul to mine, blazed to life with an intensity I had never experienced before. I could feel his determination, his love, his willingness to sacrifice everything to protect me and our friends. And I realized that Lydia had been right. The mate bond did give me access to powerful magic. Not dark magic like Morgana's, but something pure and bright and utterly unbreakable. I stood up, power flowing through me like liquid fire, and stepped between Kieran and Morgana. "You want to bind supernatural creatures to your will?" I said, my voice carrying across the clearing with supernatural force. "Then try to bind this." I reached out with my magic, not toward Morgana, but toward every mated pair in the area. I could feel them. Alpha Marcus and his mate Elena, Alpha Darius and his partner Marcus, even some of the younger wolves who had found their bonds recently. I touched each connection, strengthening them, making them shine like beacons in the darkness. Morgana's expression changed from confidence to alarm as she realized what I was doing. "Stop," she commanded. "You don't understand the forces you're playing with." "I understand perfectly," I said, my power growing stronger with each bond I touched. "You want to corrupt love, to turn our greatest strength into weakness. But love isn't weak, Morgana. Love is the strongest force in any universe." I reached out to Sarah, pouring all my affection for her, all our shared memories and sisterly bond, into a lance of pure light that shattered Morgana's compulsion like glass. Sarah gasped and stumbled, but her eyes were clear and her own again. "Luna," she cried, and I felt her love and gratitude flowing back to me, adding to my strength. Morgana snarled and unleashed a wave of dark magic directly at me, but it broke against the shield of love and loyalty I had woven around myself. The bonds I had strengthened weren't just protecting their individual pairs. They were creating a network of light that Morgana's darkness couldn't penetrate. "Impossible," she hissed. "Love is selfish, possessive, destructive. I've seen it tear apart families, destroy communities, start wars. You've seen love corrupted," I said, advancing toward her as my power continued to grow. "But you've never seen love in its pure form. Let me show you." I reached out with my magic one more time, not to attack Morgana, but to touch the deepest part of her being, the place where her own capacity for love had once resided, before centuries of darkness had twisted it into something unrecognizable. For just a moment, I saw her as she had once been, a young woman who had loved someone deeply, who had lost that love to war and betrayal, who had spent centuries trying to fill the void with power and control. I felt her pain, her loneliness, her desperate need to never be hurt again. And in that moment of connection, something extraordinary happened. The network of love I had created expanded to include her, offering healing instead of judgment, compassion instead of condemnation. Morgana's scream shattered the night air, but it wasn't a sound of rage. It was the cry of someone who had been lost in darkness for so long that they had forgotten what light looked like. The shadows that had been wrapping around her began to dissipate, and her monstrous form started to return to human shape. "I can't," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I've done too much, hurt too many people. There's no redemption for what I've become." "There's always redemption," I said gently, still maintaining the connection between us. "As long as you're willing to choose love over fear, healing over revenge." For a moment, I thought she might accept the offer of healing, but then her expression hardened, and she pulled back from the connection with violent force. "No," she said, her voice filled with bitter resolve. "If I cannot rule, then I will not allow anyone else to live in the peace I was denied." She raised her hands one final time, gathering every scrap of dark magic she could reach, preparing to unleash it in a final, devastating attack that would destroy everyone in the clearing. But she had forgotten about Kieran. My mate, still in his wolf form, had been circling around behind her while she was focused on our magical duel. Now he leaped, his powerful jaws closing around her throat before she could complete her spell. The dark magic she had been gathering exploded outward without direction, but instead of destroying us, it was absorbed by the network of love I had created. The bonds between all the mated pairs in the area flared brighter than ever, turning Morgana's final attack into a celebration of everything she had tried to destroy. Morgana collapsed, her life force finally spent after centuries of unnatural extension. As she died, the last of her compulsion spells broke, freeing the wolves she had enslaved. In the sudden silence that followed, I looked around at the faces of my friends, my pack, and the allies who had risked everything to help us. We had won, but the cost had been enormous, and I knew that the supernatural world would never be quite the same. Kieran shifted back to human form and pulled me into his arms, both of us shaking with exhaustion and relief. "Is it over?" I asked. "It's over," he confirmed. "Morgana is dead. Her army is freed, and the threat is ended. And us? What happens to us now?" Alpha Marcus approached, his expression thoughtful. "That," he said, "is something we'll need to discuss. But Luna, what you did here tonight, the way you turned love into a weapon against darkness, that's not something any of us will forget. The feud between our packs ends here," Alpha Darius added, looking at Kieran. "Your great-grandfather's sacrifice saved the supernatural world once. Tonight, his great-grandson and his mate saved it again. The Nightshade Pack will be welcomed back into the greater community with full honors." Sarah stumbled over to me, still weak from her ordeal but smiling through her tears. "Luna, I don't understand everything that happened, but I know you saved me. Thank you." I hugged her tightly, grateful beyond words to have my friend back safe and whole. As dawn broke over the forest, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I stood with Kieran's arms around me and looked out at the new world we had helped create. The forbidden love that had brought us together had indeed changed everything, not by destroying the old order, but by showing everyone what was possible when love conquered fear. There would be challenges ahead, negotiations between the packs, adjustments to centuries-old traditions, and the work of rebuilding trust that had been shattered by decades of feuding. But for the first time in my life, I felt truly hopeful about the future. The mate bond that connected Kieran and me had proven stronger than dark magic, stronger than ancient grudges, stronger than fear itself. And if our love could survive everything that had been thrown against it, then maybe there was hope for healing all the wounds that divided the supernatural world. "What are you thinking about?" Kieran asked, his voice soft in my ear. "The future," I said, leaning back against his chest. "Our future. And what do you see?" I smiled, feeling the warm certainty of our bond flowing between us. "Everything," I said. "I see everything." The forbidden love that had started as a secret meeting in an ancient stone circle had become the foundation for a new era of peace and cooperation among the supernatural communities. And as the sun rose on this new day, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, Kieran and I would face them together, our love a beacon of hope in a world that had forgotten how to believe in happy endings. But we had proven that sometimes, against all odds, love really could conquer all. Legal disclaimer: this story is entirely fictional and created for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real people, living or dead, real events, or real institutions is purely coincidental.